We just have to give this a moment to catch up. Hopefully it does. Now, I should, and let's just make sure. Just checking some things. This should be good. We're gonna find out. All right. Ah. Well, we're gonna find out what happens. Hopefully that's actually done the trick. If it hasn't, let me know. Actually, it doesn't look like it's done the trick at all. But either way, we're going to find out, trying to make sure that I get things working, and if they're not working, that's okay. We're going to find out what happens anyway. Hello, Silver Fox. Listen, we're actually walking right now to Mackenzie's Tavern. I just had to sit down. So welcome. I am your Saturday night, and this is your Saturday film night. All right. So, yeah, this is just kind of like a really dry opener, but it's fun. We're gonna talk about film. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm just glad. I'm glad. It's a beautiful day, and we're gonna hope that I got this working. If I haven't, it's something to work on later. All right. There are wild animals running around these woods. So we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to try to do a quick little speed up. I need to get to the tavern so that we can go ahead and fill the horn. So hopefully this works. I have the horn ready. We just need to go ahead. Ah! So slow, so bad. Sorry, I'm way behind the bar. I'll get up to you in a second. I need to just fill up the horn here. But we're here to talk about film and fun film. All right, let me just go ahead. I'm going to join you up at the front. We're going to do this as best as we can. Let's see if it works. Oh, nope, I put myself in the wrong spot. Let me get up from here. Oh. Here we go. We filled the horn. We're here to talk about film, and it is most certainly a beautiful night. Oh, let me just fix this little thing. When I snapped up here, made a little whoopsie there. And there we go. Everything should be fine now. We have our horn, we have the tavern, and we have a beautiful Saturday to share together talking about something that, as you know, is very important to me. And that's film. And film and filming and all the wonderful things that come along with it. Now, we've gotten together a few times before to talk about filming technique and also the process of building your film. Yes, yours. So maybe you want to go ahead and build a film. And if you do want to build a film, you're going to need to know certain ways to do things. And I'm here to help you in any way I can. Or at least in as many ways as I can in this way. been a little while since we were actually at the tavern, and it's really nice to be here again. It's a home away from home. And what is your Saturday night without Mackenzie's Tavern? All right. So we discussed ways before to determine the tone, the story, the crafting, and even certain elements of film, choosing genre, theme, characters, key scenes. But we've also talked about technical work that comes along with the camera itself. Now, though they may not have been the most seamless transitions, what I actually started with here was transitions from one location to another, which is a very fundamentally important part of film and actually drives the story very well. Just like naughty cats drive me to wonder how long it's going to be before they do something they shouldn't. The question remains. I walk over to the cat once a week. He's a good boy, though. He doesn't mean to be naughty. He just is. You can't help but have mischief with cats. Alright, so scene transition is important in all manners of film. But it's important in the way that you drive your story as well. A transition can very quickly take you from a moment of drama to right out of a film if it's done incorrectly. You can't just go ahead and string together a bunch of scenes, though some would argue occasionally I do that. It all has purpose, and the purpose has to be very, very thoughtful, and it has to be intentional. Scene transition, like we started with, when we started in the woods, and then I was behind the bar, and then I was up here with you in Mackenzie's Tavern, having a conversation. Each one of those transitions was essential to a very short and basic story. Here I am, walking to the tavern. I'm in the woods. What am I doing? I'm going to fill my horn. And from there, where do you find me? The next time you see me, I was actually over behind the bar, filling the horn. Then, the next place you see me is right up here to carry on the conversation we're having. These transitions are soft transitions, and soft transitions, they don't need a lot of explanation. The story itself will explain each of the steps, and soft transitions can carry a story along. And that's part of the beauty. Now, per se, I lost something in the woods. Well, perhaps we should return there. I better return. And there we are. Another soft transition. Now, this one was a little more jarring because it didn't fit so neatly with the story. However, it did fit with our narration of the story and the character in said story telling you the next thing they were going to do. These kinds of transitions are very important, whether they are a soft or a hard transition. Now, in this case, it was a slightly hard transition, but most hard transitions will be jumps, and those jumps can come in all sorts of sizes, varieties, and flavors. Now, the jump that we're about to talk about is a very particular one, and hard transitions are very important in the genre of horror. So fitting. It's almost like it's nearly Halloween or something. And yeah, I dragged a chair out in the woods. What do you got to say about it? Hard transitions are quick, rapid jumps from one scene to another, or a hard transition from a character being somewhere to a character not. Case in point, you're following me along the woods, and the next time you see anything, you find yourself in an empty tavern. As soon as you are in the empty tavern, you suddenly don't quite know what's going on. What's the next scene? Could it be a jump scare? We don't know. But hard transitions like this are very important, sometimes carrying a story to a next logical point that's only logical when you take into consideration the entire story, not necessarily the scene you just witnessed. And now I'm going. Now, if you'll excuse me. This bottle actually has a slight chip already in it. A spooky tavern indeed. When the tavern's empty, if you were to watch a film and you were in an empty room, there's something interesting about that, and it's the fact that you don't know what's going to happen. And then if suddenly someone is to disappear, you're left even a little more confused until they're there again. Now, a hard transition or a hard jump like that can be quite jarring to the senses. If the person that you're conversing with suddenly leaves, or the character or a body in view is gone without warning and without any sort of expectation of what might be there, it can be a bit alarming. Now, these kinds of transitions are falling in favor in modern horror. However, the jump scare is not. Now, fortunately, in recent years, there has been a slow, gradual lowering of jump scares and an increase in tension building once more, and that's a good thing all around. But we still have to remember hard and soft transitions. And these transitions can go in all sorts of ways. Now, as I jump from place to place, I can continue telling you a story, a particular story. But there's lots of ways to do these transitions, these cuts, and these jumps. Now, obviously, if we were to sit here and actually film each of these portions, you wouldn't get some of the clunkiness that you might see here in regards to a shift or a change where there's a slight delay. No, it would all move through quite seamlessly, and occasionally those seamless transitions, well, they can be confusing. And that's the point, actually. The point is to confuse your audience. And sometimes the point is just to tell a story. But we're talking about transitions and things such as that in relation to horror movies. Now, a classic transition in the horror movie has a rather eerie name, and that is actually the follower or the stalker camera angle. Now, usually these camera angles are done in a very particular way. They are done at low level. Now, in a previous live stream or a previous show, if you're watching this later when it's uploaded on YouTube, in a previous show we discussed how pointing a camera upward at someone can convey authority. But there's something else it can do too. If instead of pointing a camera upward, if you keep the plane flat, but you drop the camera down, well, suddenly you can create a sort of alien nature. And instead of looking directly at a person, the camera will move and follow a person, or will peek around the corner of a building. And this is the follower, or the phantom, or the stalker technique. There's lots of ways it can be done. And I did have a camera set up to do this, unfortunately. It's not turning on right now. But the idea is simple. Get the camera low. Have subjects turned away or even walking away. If done correctly, you can create all sorts of unease. Let me show. And though that was still not exceptionally smooth, it does demonstrate a simple thing. And that is changing the position of your camera to illustrate emotion. Not just emotion, but mood. And the mood we want to illustrate is something that doesn't feel quite right. Now, the alien nature of having the camera sit below the normal eye line is actually to give the quality of something like an animal. An animal moving rapidly, low to the ground, well, it'd be looking straight. It could dodge and run and move, and you can sweep cameras quickly to follow a target or to zip around a landscape. And when you do this, especially when the characters are faced away, there's a sense of vulnerability. And that is what we want to capture. Now, quick transitions, hard to soft, where you can go ahead and be looking at two characters in a film talking or walking, and you see them head on, but what you don't see is literally anything behind them, and then to hard transition to a low camera angle, moving rapidly towards them, or even slowly towards them, at a lower level than would normally be seen eye to eye, you have instantly created a feeling of something isn't right. This hard transition from showing characters interacting, where you can clearly see behind them, and then moving behind them with the camera, sometimes far behind them, at an odd angle, or an odd position, it's going to leave you with strange feelings. And that's what we want to do. Made it early this time. Welcome, glad you're here. Now, let's pop back out to the woods. Oh. Now this particular scene I actually chose for the idea of a setting, a background as it were. Because, let's be fair, how often do you turn on a spooky movie and at least some of it occurs in the woods? Why is this? It's an interesting question, actually. Sometimes choices are deliberately made, such as setting a movie in the woods, so that you can actually set up an immediate discomfort. In this case, people can be, and not everyone, but a lot of people can be on slight edge in the woods. I mean, there's all those mysterious sounds, there's animals, there's potential threats, and a portion of our mind can perceive those potential threats as being there, even when we're not consciously aware of it. Whether there actually is a threat or not, that's questionable. But the woods makes a wonderful place to base your potential horror movie. But it's only one place. There's many more choices. Oh, I actually am having way too much fun with this. We'll get quicker on that later. However, there is something to be said about just setting a movie in an enclosed space, which you'll also see in a lot of horror movies. Why? Well, that's quite simple. Enclosed spaces create a different feeling. Number one, the number of entrances and exits is greatly reduced. Number two, we actually feel a great deal of security in small walled-off spaces. But we also can feel claustrophobic as soon as the tension comes in. Now, in the case of this tavern, we're actually struck with something interesting. If you'll look up, you'll see all of those rafters up there. In a horror movie, this could be a potential place for monsters to hide. Unless you're dealing with a movie where the monsters are the other people. I'll tell you what, I'm going to get better at jumping from point to point like that at some point in time. My teleportation powers are not what they should be. But as I carry on, and as I continue to discuss these concepts, if at any point in time you'd like me to slow down or say something again, and you're watching the live show, please do say so, and we can get into things a little bit more. But transitions are magic. And whether you're watching a television show, a movie, a streaming program, whether you're watching a live chat or anything else, the transitions we make from point to point matter in the creation of the story that we're telling. Whether that story is a live moment, a true moment, or whether that story is something fictional. Each one of these transitions is very important. Much like dealing with naughty kitties can also be important. They're engaging in cat combat over the box where I actually keep the tavern. What are you going to do? However, let me pop this over here. What a day. Now I realize that I'm going ahead, much like the subject I'm talking about, I'm transitioning quite quickly from thing to thing. But it is all part of the plan. Because much like a good horror movie, I want to put you on your toes. And much like a good story, I want you to be thinking on your feet. You don't have to literally think on your feet. It's just a phrase. Regardless, every transition we take in a movie, whether it's soft, hard, or whether it's a moving transition, which we'll get to in a second, these transitions really are foundational in the editing process. You can go ahead and film your entire movie. You can film a long one, a short one, something in between. You can film a series. But if you don't consider, either in the filming, pre-production, or post-production, the transition from scene to scene, you can quickly get sunk. Why? The moment you throw someone out of your picture, the moment things just feel too not right, you're going to lose your audience. It's sad, but it's true. Some creativity wants to get people lost, while other creativity wants people to follow very, very directly what's going on. One transitional technique is a moving transition. And a moving transition is, well, exactly what it sounds like. When you transition from scene to scene, you'll be doing it while the camera is still moving. Why? Well, this movement is, much like the story itself, a continuation of concept. You're actually going ahead and propelling your viewer from moment to moment by never letting the camera rest in your transitions. There are many movies that use this. Usually they'll use it in parallax, where the camera is coming in or out, or they'll do it in sweeping motions, side to side. Occasionally, moving transitions can be quite carefully crafted, so it looks like you're continuously following a character as they walk along, but what you haven't noticed is in a quick twist or turn of that camera as the people are walking, they've actually stopped the footage and then cut in the next scene, which could have been filmed days or hours later. There are a large number of films which are what you call one-shot films. And when I say large number, I don't mean a large number of big multi-million-dollar films, though there are some. I do mean just a larger number than people realize, where one-shot filming is your go-to. One-shot filming appears to have no transitions. The camera is always moving, following the characters from point to point through an entire singular cohesive story. And this is done with the moving transition. Sometimes they do go ahead and film all in one go, an entire action sequence, an entire story point, an entire chase, whatever it could be. Sometimes the camera literally never turns off, but sometimes that camera is just used very, very craftily, sweeping and moving and following characters so that when they do have to cut the footage, you never know. It's quite brilliant, actually. Haunting of Hill House, a very good choice. And yes, spooky movies love moving transition, because sometimes the camera will continue to spin around, showing a potential victim and then showing their follower. And these moving transitions can be done quite craftily, where they're actually going to be a 180 spin, which we've talked about before. And that's a 180-degree arc or angle where they go ahead and they move continuously from one point to another. If this is done correctly, you don't even have to shoot the same two people in the same building, room, or country. All you have to do is sweep the camera. And that's why it's so crafty. Alright. Let's go back to the woods. Back to the woods we are. Now, as I continue on, do keep in mind one fun fact. If you've been following my film YouTube channel, there are soon going to be some new releases in honor of this spooky month. Keep your eyes peeled. But let's continue onward with a conversation that's quite fun, actually. The number of different shots that can actually be used or composited together to create nervousness, tension, or even just that alien dread. They're all the same shots that you use for any other traditional movie, with a few caveats. Now, when we talk about the follower or the stalker angle, instead of tipping the camera upward, you want to keep it straight. Oftentimes, extreme close-ups or shots to truly get the full scope of dread are used. Getting as close as you can to a person's face, to their sweat, to their breath going in and out. We want to see these things. We need to feel how the character feels. But another large technique used in just about all horror filming is actually in post-production, and that's sound. Sound has a very interesting way to help us know when a transition has happened, even if we haven't seen one. I'm sure that you probably now can think of some movie that you may have seen or some TV show where the way things sounded let you know before what was happening on camera let you know something was about to happen. Or to be a little more specific, sound effects or music changes oftentimes let us know when the dread terror is about to come. There's a couple of ways that this is actually done. One can be speeding up or slowing down music. Another can be theme music. In the case of certain monsters or heroes, their music can let us know that they're there, even before we see them. Then, of course, there's the very classic Jason Voorhees. Oh, I can't do it right now. Either way. Yeah, I can't do that correctly at the moment. Regardless, the breathing sound that accompanies Jason Voorhees is iconic, and there is even a particular way that it gets written in captions and subtitles, and this sound lets you know when Jason is near, even if you can't see him, even if they don't change camera angles. You know somewhere nearby a monster lurks. And this technique, though often accompanied by slight changes in film style or angle or position or even skew, the pitch or the yaw of the camera, though some of these things might change slightly, giving us some sort of sound clue that something is going to happen occurs in many things. Another way that this is actually done sometimes, and I think it can be tremendously frightening when done right, is with silence. Absolute pitch silence, where you have no idea anything is going to happen until it does. But as soon as that quiet comes, much like in the real world when a predator stalks through the grass and the forest goes quiet. It plays on this same primal concept. And though not as popular as music or sound effects to let you know when someone is in danger, it's very effective. Or at least it can be. A place where this can actually be highlighted is in a non-horror movie, but nonetheless a thriller, and that's Gravity. And in Gravity, they do go ahead and let us experience space with pretty much no sound. In most space movies, they'll usually use some sort of sound when there's an explosion or something happens, or you have crashing of debris into other things. No, in Gravity, they leave space, for the most part, soundless. And that soundlessness creates peril. And it's all quite interesting, really. Now, this doesn't necessarily work for all films, and it doesn't work for all viewers of those films. Everyone is different in their own way. Now, I hope you are enjoying this, and if you have any questions as I continue, feel free to let me know. I'm moving right along. But that's okay, because I think we're having a pretty good time. It's Saturday. We're here. We're here in the woods. Isn't it nice? Isn't it great? But you know what I don't hear? I don't hear any birds. That's okay, though, because I'm going to sit behind my bar and be safe. Now, there's actually something else which you can see in this particular shot I'm using. So, if you notice, good. If you don't notice, that's fine. This false perspective, as it were, gives you an indication of what should be the size of the person behind the bar. And the reality is, if I was this large, I would be a giant. However, forced perspective and false perspective are also important. You see, you don't realize that the person behind the bar inside the tavern would be enormous until you get closer. But if we were to go ahead and put a couple of people really far away on either side, you could overemphasize the size of the person behind the bar. Staggering of people and camera trickery can be employed marvelously to overemphasize either the large, imposing nature of a villain or the small stature of something, whether it's a character or the monster in question. See, you couldn't even find me. I'm way back here and you don't know where I am. That's a little scary. And maybe I'm not even real, as I just walk away and disappear. But I am real. Or at least, I'm a lot more real than it would seem. Back to the woods. And as we jump from place to place, and as we discuss these concepts, there's still so much more to unwrap, to dig into, to dive into. This is really an extension of our previous concepts of the techniques of filmmaking, but this is also in the concept of crafting your film when you make choices in regards to location or story or conflict, you really are going to want to think about the spaces you're going to film in and how they can be used to your advantage. There's a cat back there. Now, when we go into any space that we normally use, an office, our home, our vehicle, a parking garage, a park, the woods, we need to consider these spaces when it comes to turning around and making our film, because these spaces are going to be very informative of how we want to film our subjects. If you're out in the woods, you can go ahead and you can do really high up downward shots that would be from the trees. You can do really low down shots at ground level. You can shoot behind bushes, you can shoot through vines, you can go ahead and have wonderful moments with tents and fires and all of these things. But when you go ahead and decide how you're going to make your shots in this location, you also have to decide what your mood is going to be. You can go very classic, and you can pretty much make every daylight hour in your film feel pretty safe. And then once it gets dark and spooky, then you can do those shots that increase the tension. Or you can mix things up, and you can have no moment in the day be safe. But do keep in mind, as with all things, it's far scarier what we don't see than what we do. Now, this is true in films, this is true in life, this is true in most art, and I would encourage you to do the smart thing and do not show your monster or your villain until you absolutely have to. In many movies, big ones, that might be a couple hours long, oftentimes our movie monsters, our movie villains, our antagonists are seen a lot less than you'd think. In Silence of the Lamb, Hannibal Lecter, I think, is only in that movie for about 5-10 minutes. And yet, that 5-10 minutes of him being in the movie was enough to embed him in our brain, to leave it as a lasting image. In Steven Spielberg's Jaws, they actually had to cut out a lot of the scenes with the shark because the animatronic they had ended up having a lot of issues. It didn't work quite right. But this actually improved the film because then we got to see the shark a lot less. Recently on Netflix, there was the movie Bird Box, and in Bird Box, I don't believe you ever see the monsters at all. You do see people who want to help the monsters who are antagonists, but you never see the monsters. In the movie Alien, the titular alien itself, is almost always shrouded in darkness and popping out of small areas where you barely ever get to see any of its features until the moment where you need to. And when you do see it, it's too late. It's all over. These are very important factors in the filming of scenes and the deciding of what is or is not important. Now, we're going to take this in the completely opposite direction as well. If there is some sort of way, or thing, or object, or weapon, or plot point that is important and informs you of how to defeat said monster, do not introduce it in the last third of your movie. Don't. You can introduce it in the midway point if necessary, but do not introduce it in the last third or last quarter of your movie. This is a Deus Ex Machina, a ghost in the machine, as it were. Or is that Deus Ex Machina? Is that God in the machine? Either way, it is an entire story killer. So, remember, important things do need to be introduced in the story early enough, or implied, or given some concept of early enough in the movie, that by the time it comes up as a full plot point, and has to be gone after or used, the audience has been naturally led to understand this. And sometimes you do have to walk your audience through something. There's nothing wrong with that. You want as many people as possible to be able to enjoy the reveal, the story, the things that make it work. In addition, plot twists, which of course there are many of movies with plot twists really require one thing. No matter how surprising, no matter how unexpected the plot twist was, at the end of the movie, someone needs to be able to watch the movie again and see enough clues that that plot twist is coming up that it doesn't break the story. So in both crafting and technique, you have to consider things like this. The way you film, the way you reveal, what you show and what you don't show, all hinges on one another. They're a puzzle of interconnected pieces. They are an entirety of your film that you are crafting. Thank you for the emotes. For some reason, my nose is really itchy, so I do apologize that I keep having to give it a little rub, but it happens. Now, we're going to go ahead. We're going to continue on because there's other things we need to discuss. And this is a really important one, and it's lighting. When it comes to lighting, and how you light a scene, a character, or anything, I want to tell you a really, really bad news fact. The bad news is, no matter how much you would like to use what they call natural lighting, it doesn't work. Natural lighting, or just filming out in the open air with natural light, it doesn't work. You either need to use reflectors to get more light where you want it to go, or you need to actually use diffusers and shaders and block portions of light out so there's no light where you don't want it. If you don't have those things, sometimes you have to actually adjust lighting in post-production. And it can do things like wash out your actors, it can wash out your props, it can produce too much shine, and it can actually go ahead, and if you have anything reflective on your characters, it can actually show off your camera gear, which is not what you want at all. So when you go ahead and you're looking at your locations, whether it's the woods like behind me, or whether it's a dimly lit tavern, or a warehouse, or a house, or an alley, do remember you will have to change the lighting, one way or another. If you do not have it in your budget as an indie filmmaker to change your lighting on scene, then you're going to have to learn how to change it in post-production. To that end, I again am going to recommend that you look into Blackmagic, DaVinci, or Adobe products. Now, Adobe After Effects or Adobe Photoshop, you can edit film in Adobe Photoshop, and you can adjust things like lighting, coloration, tint. You can put animations over top of things, and filters, as well as just draw things in, and even go ahead and correct the color of someone's eyes if you want to. In DaVinci and After Effects, you can do rather large things. You can go ahead and you can completely change the color palette and tone of a scene, or you can go ahead and you can import extra light. So you can add light to scenes in post-production, and this is a choice. The question is, which end do you want to do it in? Yes, it does look awful and cheap when you use natural lighting, unless you know what you're doing, but even if you do know what you're doing, it still doesn't look that great. Silver Fox, glad to have you here. If you got to go mobile audio, that's perfectly fine. You get yourself what you need. In fact, because you just said that, we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to get back here. Oh, sorry, I'm back in the pub. The tavern. Don't question that I forgot where I was. Getting things off this back shelf in the tavern can be difficult. Hold on, let me open this. Oh, yeah. That was good. There's something wonderful about the sound of just cracking something open. Oh, hey, look at this. Boom! We're in the woods again, without explanation. That would be a moment in a movie that really could take you out of it pretty fast. But it's all about the story and the transition. If you actually jumped between two completely different characters, or you did a flashback sequence or something like that, and you rapidly cut from one place to another, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine, as long as you make it make sense. And as much as I like to create abstract film, non-narrative film, or art film, you do have to have certain things make sense in some way. Some way. Just take the time to put it in. Finding Cherry says, hey, I just learned about the Wilhelm Scream. I have no excuse for not knowing about this wonderful joke. Yes, the Wilhelm or the Wilhelm Scream is used in so many movies. It's the exact same sound. It's literally the same sound effect. Rarely with any changes done on it. And they use it for everything from the end of a character's life, where they scream out, characters getting thrown off things. They'll stick it in the background for explosions, someone just screaming out. And the Wilhelm Scream is just one recorded scream that has been used in hundreds and hundreds of movies, and you can recognize it every single time once you know what it is. And every time that I hear it, you get a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a snicker, but it can actually, it can ruin a serious movie pretty fast. I understand why the Wilhelm Scream is used. I mean, pretty iconic. At the same time, come on, just record a new person screaming. You have actors on set. Just record someone screaming. Don't use that unless you're making a comedy. Just don't. If you are an indie filmmaker and you need someone to scream for your movie, and it even crosses your mind for 1 second to use the Wilhelm Scream because you need a scream sound effect, don't. It would be better if you recorded yourself screaming in the shower with a cell phone and then put the audio in your film, then use the Wilhelm Scream. Don't do it unless you're making a comedy. Just putting that out there. Silver Fox, listening mobile, thank you for joining us. Now, we're going to carry along. There are certain things which it's just my opinion, and take it for that. It's just my opinion. So my opinion on the Wilhelm Scream, is just that. That's my opinion. If you have a differing opinion and you want to make a film, or if you're someone in the industry who has some sort of reasonable explanation for why a multi-million-dollar movie uses the Wilhelm Scream, feel free to let me know. Especially if you're like a producer of like a $50 million movie and you use a Wilhelm Scream, explain yourself. Thank you for the emotes. Now, to carry on with the concept of our craft, our transitions, our filming techniques, we're actually going to get down to a really simplistic one, and I think I've mentioned this before, and that is selective lighting. Selective lighting is a pretty basic idea, and there's lots of ways to illustrate it, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to use a really classic one. Now, when Bela Lugosi played Dracula, they did this marvelous thing where they had a light that was highly focused and shined just across his eyes. It is reported that Bela Lugosi actually had some vision problems because of how bright that light was. That being besides the point right now, the effect was amazing. A brilliant, bright light focused in a single band across Bela Lugosi's eyes, while every other part of his body was in shadow. Well, it scared many a viewer for a few decades. Now, granted, this is almost a century ago now, but nonetheless, that selective lighting choice of only having the eyes of Bela Lugosi be brightly lit to give the indication of Dracula's vampiric gaze. This selective lighting choice has evolved a great deal, but its effect is the same. If you cast your villain in darkness, but your hero in light, even in the exact same set, in the exact same moment, in a scene where they're inches from one another, everything about the scene changes. Before you ask, it is entirely possible to darken in one whole side of a room, or even one corner of a room, to the point where everything is obscured. You can do this with reflectors, which, if you're going to do it on the cheap, you can get what they call aluminum tape. It's like duct tape, but it has a very reflective metal finish, and you can take aluminum tape and you can tape it onto cardboard flaps, and you can make your own reflectors if you want to. So take a cardboard box, cut it into a big square with a fold in the middle, cover the thing in aluminum tape, and then just position it properly, or have someone hold it and just position it, and you can increase the amount of light somewhere else where it shouldn't be. And actually, depending on where your cameras are, you can actually use this to push all the light to one side in a room. And if the person with the reflector is properly positioned, the other side of the room is going to be dark. So you could actually film it with two cameras and show your two subjects in the same room at the same time with drastically different lighting. And it's really fun how that can happen. Now, most equipment can't just be hand built, but then again, a lot of it can. So it's kind of a 50-50. You can build by hand on the cheap a lot of different film equipment, and then at the same time, you can buy all that same stuff. Is there a difference between the stuff that you buy and the stuff that you build? Yes. If you are working on an indie film budget, does it necessarily matter? Not for what you're doing. You can spend a few $100s on diffusers and reflectors, or you could spend $30 on some tracing paper, some aluminum tape, and some cardboard, and get a similar effect. At some point in time, maybe I will actually go ahead and do a video on how to build things like reflectors and diffusers yourself. And if you're interested in that, please let me know, and we can try to work that in, do a video about it. There's also lots of videos on YouTube, so I highly encourage you to look up how to make your own reflectors, make your own diffusers, and make all sorts of other things, like even stability rigs, if you need to carry a camera, or maybe you want to make speed rails for sliding cameras along. There are tons of videos out there, tons of how-tos, DIYs for how to build these things. So if you are looking to upgrade your film setup, and you need to upgrade your film equipment, there's a lot of it you can build yourself. You'll still have to spend money, but it's going to be a lot less than buying the professional stuff. There will be a big difference between certain pieces of equipment and a smaller difference between others as far as the professionalism and quality of it. But you can go ahead and build many of the things. Speed rails. If you go ahead, actually we'll make this one really fast. You go ahead, you go to a hardware store and you get the little rails like you would mount inside a dresser for pulling the drawer in and out. You go ahead, you mount those on a frame. I'm skipping a lot of steps here, but you can go ahead, you can mount those on a frame. You can then take the bearings and the casters that normally would slide in and out. You can attach a box to it. You can actually go ahead and build yourself with dowels, square dowels, a rectangular frame. You can go ahead, you can mount everything up, and then you can put the casters on that rectangular frame, and then you can screw into it a mounting device of some sort for your camera. As soon as you screw that on, you can take that frame and you can lay it out, and then what you can actually do is you can have a camera that slides perfectly stable and still along the speed rails. And depending on how you do that, you can get a wide range of different kinds of shots. Now, most of it will have to be custom built based on what you're doing, and I know that was a very fast explanation of how to do that, and also basic explanation. But there's a lot of equipment you can build yourself, and there's a lot of things that you can do yourself. So I encourage you to go out and look for resources on how to do that. But as we do more videos, as I come to you both in lives and pre-recorded videos, pardon me, discussing indie film and how you can do things, we will discuss equipment you can build, and we'll discuss more techniques. And at some point in time, I may do a few tutorials on how to do a few things, including film footage on showing how to execute some of these techniques in the field. We, as creators, and you right there, if you are going to be an indie filmmaker and make your indie film, you need to study. As I said in one of my first videos on this subject, if there's a camera you want to use or a filming technique you use, do it. If you have the camera, use the camera. It doesn't matter if you're filming anything for the project you're working on, just film. And if there's a technique you want to use, practice it. You will not be able to do the technique or use the camera when it's time to if you don't have familiarity or practice with the equipment and skills that you want to use. So I will emphasize this again now, as I feel it's very important that we remember we have to practice our craft. Whatever your craft is, you have to practice. If you want to paint, you have to paint. It doesn't matter if you know how to paint, you have to paint. If you want to draw, you have to draw. There's no way to get better at either unless you do them. And if you want to be a cinematographer, a filmmaker, if you want to be a videographer, if you want to be if you want to produce a series, a show, little snippets, clips, a live stream, you have to practice with the gear you want to use and the gear you have. From Silver Fox Talks, that's great advice. I'm just here to try to help, so I hope that that advice is helpful. From Finding Cherry, big facts. It's just the way it is. So when I discuss these transitions that I'm doing, and I show you the transitions I'm doing here, what I had to do, and I'll just give you a little background understanding, what I had to do is I had to set up 3 cameras, and after I set up 3 cameras for today's stream, I had to go ahead and set up all of the scenes. I also had to set up a green screen across the back, and I had to make sure that all the cameras were properly aligned and properly calibrated so that the chroma of the would be smooth for these green screens. And I had to go ahead and set up multiple different scenes. So I have 3 scenes right now set up so that we can do this. I actually set something else up and I forgot to use it, so I'm going to just show you this now because it's kind of fun. Oh, hold on. There we go. Oh, I forgot. There we go. Boom! I set this up and I forgot to use it. Just a fun little intro. The point is, it took a while to set all of these things up. You can't just jump right in and then assume everything's going to work. You have to make it work. And to make it work, you have to do the work. So that's why I discuss crafting your film, the steps to building your film, and then the techniques required to do certain things. And I don't know everything. And I have made films. I've made several. I have multiple awards now, but I still have a lot to learn. So I guess I just kind of started off strong there, but I still have a lot to learn, and we learn together, and we learn by doing, and we learn by researching and diving into the subjects we want to do. And it's always going to be that way. You have to work. Thank you so much. I try to work as hard as I can and I put a lot of thought and consideration into what I create, what I do, and I do have a lot of pride in the work I have created. Now, we are reaching the end of the show. We have about 20 minutes left, and I'd like to open up the floor, as it were, to questions of any kind in regards to film, filming, or otherwise. While I'm at it, it's time to refill the horn. I know we're not in the tavern, but do you really think I came out into the woods without having something to fill my horn with? Sorry. It was funny to me. But yeah, if you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know. I'm here to help you on your journey. And I do encourage you to practice, to get out there, to work with your gear, to work with your techniques, to spend time building your story, to remember my advice, but also to take it with a grain of salt and seek out other resources, other experts, other filmmakers, to watch films, to watch shows, to watch live productions, to watch plays, to read books, and to absorb that information to create your style, your craft, and your skill set. Thank you so much, Silver Fox. Silver Fox Talk says you are super talented. Thank you so much. Work hard. Work hard until you're recognized. I've heard fake it till you make it, but let's be honest, you should not fake it until you make it. Do the work. Don't fake it. Do the work. Be authentic. That's a kind of a dirty word sometimes, authentic, because it's overused, but the reality of it is simple. Be you. Do what you do, and put in the time. And if you do those things, you're going to get a lot farther than if you fake it. Don't fake it. And learn, always learn. Learn from your successes, learn from your failures. Learn from your peers, learn from yourself. Learn from your teachers, learn from your students. Finding Cherry says, we got to get you recognized on Twitch. Get that dough. Thank you so much. What is it? I need 6 more followers. So, hopefully we get some followers, some extra followers. But regardless, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be creating. I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be providing you with whatever skills and knowledge I have, as well as just having a really good time. Silver Fox Talks give me the 100 mic drop. So I appreciate that. Unless that was a mic drop for Finding Cherry, in which case, still pretty good. Now, we do have 15 minutes that the show would normally run on a little bit longer. I went at a very brisk pace, so 10 across the board. I just shared this stream on Facebook. So thank you, Silver Fox Talks, and thank you, Finding Cherry. You're great. You're great. I will end our conversation on a different topic, one which is equally as important as all of these, and it's characterization. Now, characterization or character creation, however you want to state it, actually those are two different things. So we're going to stick to character creation. When you create a character for your film, for your story, for your book, for your show, whatever it may be, I want you to take some time to really consider the desires, the wants, and the motivations of that character. And I want you to, you don't have to know everything about them. And I've talked about this before, but what you should know is what they will or won't do. Now, this is a little deeper dive than our last conversation where I mostly talked about knowing a character's motivations. And a character's motivations are really important. Maybe they're motivated by money, maybe they're motivated by love, maybe they are motivated by a desire to create the best pie or to get a promotion at work. Or maybe they're motivated by family. There's so many different kinds of motivations. We won't get into that too much. But for a deeper dive in character creation, consider what your character will and will not do. What falls outside of the things that they can manage to do. Is your character really simple? It's like they won't lie unless they absolutely have to. That's boring, by the way. Just to me, personally. If a character won't lie unless they absolutely have to, it's kind of boring because it's kind of cliche. But it can be made interesting. There's lots of ways to make that interesting. But maybe your character won't run red lights, or maybe they won't break the law, or maybe they won't leave evidence. And these are all really simple one-line things, but consider what your character will and won't do. First, make some hard no's. Character doesn't like egg salad. They will not eat egg salad. Why does this matter? Well, put them in a scene where they have to eat that egg salad. And then figure out where it goes from there. You know your character won't do that. So put them in a situation where they have to. Or where it's presented to them. And one of the reasons you want to do that isn't just to create tension in your story or conflict in your story. It's actually to grow the character as a person, or to show that they are set in the way that they are. Oh, this is a great movie, Egg Salad Sunday. And then we got some eggs and investigation. Thank you for the comments and the emotes. So in this particular scene, we're going to talk about character A. Character A is our hero, and character A will not eat egg salad, but character A is undercover in, yeah, they're a cop. So they're undercover in a illegal casino, and the owner of the casino really likes them, so they invite them in. And part of the whole mission for character A is they have to get in with the owner of the illegal casino, and the owner invites them in, and they're like, hey, I'd like to talk business with you. Hey, eat these sandwiches. You know, we're going to eat sandwiches together. Let's have lunch. Talk business. But then the crafty, and then there's egg salad. Egg salad, and your hero's like, oh, I don't want to eat that egg salad. But what do they do? What do they do? And I know this is a really simplistic concept, but you can insert things like this on a more nuanced scale with more thought put into it, into a story. Just identify those things. In this fictional tale, this scene we're working on, we've created a character who's a undercover cop, and they hate egg salad, but the illegal casino they're supposed to infiltrate, the owner, he invites them to lunch, and it's egg salad, and now you got to eat the egg salad, and whoa, what if they react poorly? What if they react poorly because you're like, no, I don't want that? What if they react poorly because you start to try to eat it, but then you have to go to the bathroom or something because you feel sick to your stomach because you don't eat it? And then, ooh, what are you going to do? So this is a really simplistic concept of how to insert um, various types of tension, conflict, and things that could go wrong in a story. And when you identify what your character will and won't do, you can test those limits. And when you test those limits, what you end up doing is you create a more nuanced and also a deeper story. Say your character is perfectly fine with letting off jaywalkers. Again, for some reason we have a cop here. They're perfectly fine with letting off jaywalkers, even though it's a crime in some cities. And they don't give them tickets or anything. And jaywalker goes by, and they're like, "Oh, it's fine. I don't have to ticket them. I don't have to give them a ticket. They're just a jaywalker." And then the jaywalker walks across the street, doesn't even realize there's a cop there, and then robs a store. And then they're like, "Oh, why did I let that jaywalker go?" Again, this is really simplified and it's a really surface level interpretation of this, but you're taking something that a character would normally do because it's part of who they are, and then it actually turns into something that can be a conflict for them, where they now have to consider their motivations further on, or whether or not the action that they normally would have taken, or something that they will do, whether or not it's right for them to do that. And that actually can create sorts of different moral tugging, and it can create internalized conflict for a character which they might have to deal with. And that could be the entire plot of a movie, an internalized conflict where something that normally you find acceptable and perfectly fine has a negative result, and you are torn up inside as you're forced to deal with the negative result of something that you have done. So in this deep dive concept, beyond just considering the motivations of a character, consider what your main characters will and will not do. If you really want a very deep, full script and full story, you can do this for every character that's involved, or you don't have to. You can do this for just your main character, and then everyone else is kind of a sketch without a lot of substance, or you can do it for everyone, and even if you never see the ramifications of someone's motivations and their will they won't they's, it creates more interesting dialogue, more interesting story, and it gives extra flavor to the world that you create in your film. Now, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to pop back up here. We only have a few more minutes left in the tavern together, so I figured I'd jump us back to the tavern. Alright, let's just check this out. I'm going to have to grab the magic stone. I always wanted to make a movie, but writing the screenplays feels so impossible. Alright. Well, finding Cherry. Screenplay writing is something that I'm Still trying to learn. But what I'll give you is this. When it comes to your first movie, your first screenplay, don't think about the screenplay. We're going to break this down the same way I write books. Do not consider everything you have to do at once. Take each thing in small chunks. This is actually why I discussed in a previous stream and previous video key scenes. So, say you have an hour-long movie and maybe there's 4 key scenes in the whole thing. And these key scenes are scenes which the whole story kind of cruxes on. They have to be there for the whole story to make sense. So, no matter how long your movie is, consider your key scenes. And we're going to do a quick breakdown. Say our story is hero fights dragon, rescues imprisoned royalty. It's pretty classic, right? Now, if you want to go ahead and address this, all you have to do is address the key scenes first. Everything else is filler, meat, and things that bolster up your story and make it larger, bigger, more impressive thing. But hero fights dragon, rescues member of royalty. It could be very simple. Valiant knight rides into forest on steed. Key scene, it's introduction. Now, it's not technically a key scene, this is an introductory scene, but nonetheless, there you go, that's a whole scene. You can write whatever you want around that. Hero rides steed through forest towards castle. That's a scene. If you want to insert dialogue, or if you want to put narration over top of that, go ahead. There's a scene. Horse with hero on back bursts through the other side of woods in front of castle. Dragon on top of castle breathes fire. There is a moment where hero has self-doubt. There's the next scene. You can add narration, you can add nuance, you can add close-ups, you can add dialogue. Maybe the hero has someone with them. Sidekick 1. Sidekick 1. Hero, I don't want to go fight the dragon. Hero, if we don't fight the dragon, royalty member trapped in castle will never get out. I know this is really simplistic, but the point is that's what key scenes are. These are the rough take-throughs of a story. Now, we've only done 2, but nonetheless, break everything down that way. Build your story. Build your screenplay around your scenes. Don't get entrenched in all the details right away. Just take the scene for what it is. Let's go back to the woods. Alright, let's see what we have here. Finding Cherry, thank you. That's actually extremely helpful advice. Puts it into perspective. You're welcome. Silver Fox Talks, can we do a storytelling building exercise one night? It helps me too as a communicator. Most certainly. And actually, that would be a great idea. We can go ahead and I'll come back to you all on another day, and we can actually do a storytelling building exercise stream, and it'll be kind of a cooperative, kind of like I was just doing, going through each scene, but what we'll actually do is we'll make it a little more interactive. I will present concepts and ideas like this, and we can work through them together. and hopefully that will be helpful for everyone. Now, it is 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and I, your Saturday night, must bid you adieu. It is time for me to fly far, far away. Because now, much like our fictional hero, I must go into these woods and rescue some member of royalty from a castle. No, I don't have to. But it was perfectly timed. You're so welcome, Silver Fox. You know, I'm glad that you've been here. Thank you, Finding Cherry, for being here. Thank you, Silver Fox, for being here. I've had a wonderful time. Hopefully, you have as well. And I will come back to you soon. I am going to be live again tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So feel free to come back. And if you're watching this when it's uploaded later on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching this on the replay on Twitch, please follow. Otherwise, be excellent, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. You've been awesome. But I'm out of here. This is. Have a great night. Oh, I like the pun. I like the pun. That's good. That's good. You have a great night as well. All right. Bye, everybody.